I helped a user automate her duties and in the end I automated her out of her job, by user chocolate_bourbon. I helped someone last year automate part of their duties. She spent about 6 weeks a quarter building a report for our leadership. So about half her time was devoted to this. The solution I built, like everything I make, used existing tools and data sources. And like everything I make, it was a little crude. A quick and dirty solution that required a couple pushes and occasional maintenance when she wanted changes or would get herself into trouble. But it worked. Unless something went wrong, it made a 6-week process into I think about an hour total. But every quarter at least one thing would go wrong. In all cases I found the root cause was the user attempting to do something my solution wasn't designed to do. And then she, eager to help as she is, would try to fix things herself, which would always make it worse. In all cases I simply reverted to an earlier version and she's back in business. My user approached a more experienced team to get something that would do an even better job. The team declined as what she already had performed adequately and they needed to focus on revenue-generating projects. So she continued using what I made, and every quarter we did this dance where she runs into trouble and I bail her out. Once I got used to this I did no troubleshooting and just reverted, so it took me very little time. She would typically spend the time my solution saved her by prettying up the text in the presentation, helping out co-workers, doing other little manual tasks here and there for her team, and teaching herself how to use the tools I'd employed to create this solution for her. Then last month my user mentioned that they were still spending some weeks per quarter doing more aggregating and parsing. I told her that everything she was doing as part of that effort I could automate too. And I'd gotten experienced at using 2 powerful tools my company had that could handle everything she needed. One tool could ingest, aggregate, and parse the data. The other one could create nice tables and charts and such. Combined, I could add more functionality and make her interventions impossible. So a stable, better product. She'd just have to update bits of the text here and there. I finished making it and she was thrilled. Now the quarterly report process was down to maybe a few days, a week at most. And it consisted almost entirely of updating the text in the deck and verifying it's what people wanted. So she had gone from spending at least 70% of her time creating this thing down to maybe 5 to 10%. She was looking forward to moving on from the report to other things. Which she did. She moved on right out of the company. I liked her. She was always trying to learn. Even when she was creating havoc, it normally made sense. And her havoc was getting more sophisticated as time went on. And I never complained about her havoc as it came from such a good place. I wondered if this would happen. I had hoped not, but that's how it goes. So now it's possible that I will take over creating this report and the accompanying deck. Which has frustrated my boss. She wants us to be the team who builds solutions, not the team who accumulates random duties. She suspects the other team's manager waited until they had someone ready to take over building the report. Which that manager now has indicated is me. I have hopes to dodge this assignment as I am not a SME on the data itself, only the machine that massages it. But I suppose I'll find out when the next fiscal quarter starts. My backup plan is to be a nuisance to my users' old team with endless questions, some of which will be justified. With luck they will assign a resource to handle report creation for a few days and I continue on as a technical resource. My computer is possessed, by user deep disk 80. I work for a school district. I get a panicked call from our middle school vice principal. She says that her laptop is trying to take screenshots and type random things and is going crazy. But, it's only happening in her office. If she leaves her office it's fine, not possessed, not taking screenshots, everything is great. She comes back to her office and it's possessed again. I remote in and I see the snippet tool is popping up, the screen is jumpy, she opens up a Google Doc and it is typing random characters, adding new lines every second. I can't figure it out, it seems like she has a puppy office and put peanut butter on her keyboard. I go over there to get my eyes on it, and I see that she has a wireless keyboard and mouse USB in the laptop but no keyboard or mouse on the desk. I ask where the keyboard and mouse are and she said still in her bag. She pulls them out of the bag and the keyboard was still on. Being in the bag leaned up against her desk, random keys were being pressed. When she left her office it would disconnect, come back in and it would reconnect and go crazy. I'm on tonight, you know my logs don't lie and I'm starting to feel I'm right, by users Petty 23. This is a classic story of work avoidance by blaming IT. Way back I used to work the night shift at a hospital that ran 24/7. Help desk was 24/7, but all other IT operations were mainly done during business hours. Important to this story is that the help desk was a different physical location to the help desk hospital. As help desk resources were kept minimal after hours, even if we were on site, anything after hours that requires actually looking at something at the user's work locations was a ticket to be looked at during business hours. There was one user who only worked nights. They would somewhat frequently call with their PC being offline. When they called, their PC was always actually offline, not pingable, they can't access network resources. The call would usually go with, "Can you check cables, is it only affecting you, have you restarted, okay, we'll get someone to take a look at it in person tomorrow." Strangely enough, when someone went to go look at it the next day, the PC was always back online, working perfectly. As no other fault could be found, it was assumed to be an intermittent issue with the PC or network cable. The PC was swapped out and network cable changed. However, we would still get the occasional "my PC isn't working again" calls from this user. Suspecting next there might be an issue with the network, rather than the PC, a ticket is logged to the network's team. Luckily, the network team used syslog, so they had a good record of logs from the network switches. What they could see, what at the time the calls were logged by this user, a few minutes after their shift began, the network logs showed the network port the computer was attached to as going down. A few minutes before their shift ended, the network logs showed the network port the computer was attached to as coming up. There was no other related log entries between these two entries, and they always occurred at the same time of day, only when this user was on shift. It almost seemed as if this person was unplugging their network cable when they started their shift, and plugging it back in when they went home, but we couldn't really outright accuse the use of this without proof. To eliminate a switch port issue, the network's team replaced the patch cable, moved to a different switch port, and even went so far as to change to using a different port between the patch panel and wall port. So now literally everything has been replaced between the switch port and the computer, including the actual computer itself. Another IT team was performing some other unrelated works at that hospital that night after hours, and this user was about due for another unexpected PC offline issue. I mentioned to that team what was going on and asked, although it's not something that we usually do, if this user calls up again, could they quickly go over and see what cause was. I do mention it almost seems as if they are unplugging the network cable for the duration of their shift, but in a way that isn't directly accusing them of that. As predicted, the user calls, and I do my usual log a ticket, and then contact the team on site. They go to that location and sure enough, the network cable is unplugged, but still resting on the port so it appears plugged in. They covertly take a photo. The next morning, the usual on-site team takes another photo, this time it shows the cable fully plugged in. Now, we are sure the user is intentionally disconnecting the network, very likely to avoid doing work due to IT issues. Performance management/discipline isn't its role, but we do let their manager know, and forward all the proof we have. They did mention that user seemed to be having a lot of IT issues lately. A few days later, we get a user termination request, and I'm sure you can guess who it was for. Edit. Corrected. The help desk was a different physical location to the help desk. The help desk was a different physical location to the hospital. Manager's files went putoof, by user fickle_tension_5918. A few weeks ago the manager of another department needed to have their machine reimaged because of some bugs. Simple job. They had had their laptop for months and never signed on once to OneDrive. We send out regular reminders via email for users to please log into OneDrive ASAP to back up your files. Unsurprisingly, those emails go unheeded as I find out every time I have to replace someone's laptop or computer and ask if they have backed up to OneDrive and they give me a blank stare. The day before this manager was supposed to ship out their laptop, I was asked to check in on them and make sure they had backed up their files. They, of course, hadn't, so I showed them where to log on, what to sync, etc. I let them know OneDrive could take a while, so just continue working and let it run in the background. I walked away, whistling a jaunty tune, thinking all was right in the world. Manager shipped out their laptop, I gave them a loaner, the reimaged laptop returned some days later. The day the laptop returned, the manager called me and asked if I could help them find some documents. I asked them if they had signed on to OneDrive and they hadn't, so I let them to know to do so and to call me back if anything was missing. I got a sinking feeling in my gut, but was praying it was just gas. The manager called me back and explained that OneDrive was signed in and syncing, but all that was available was folders and subfolders with nothing in them. I checked their OneDrive web portal, in case the desktop app had not finished syncing, and all I saw was empty folders. I checked with my boss, our O365 admin, and one other guy who had luck in the past resolving this, and they all basically said this manager was sole. We're pretty sure the laptop was disconnected too early and sent out without the manager confirming everything was backed up. I still feel really bad about it, but my boss reminded me the manager should have started backing up as soon as he got the laptop months ago and let it auto-sync. We had a long, hard conversation with them and they were understandably pissed. My manager and I both apologized, but there was nothing we could do. UPSs work best when plugged in, by Useroing Kai Confidence. Quick one from several years back. Had a small customer, 10 people, that was fantastic. During the pandemic they sold to a larger conglomerate, but this takes place in the late 2010s. At that time, their office manager Chris was retiring, so they were interviewing replacements. Chris was our point of contact and we did a lot of work over the years. After interviews they hired someone named Kayla. Kayla was young, nothing wrong with that, but had no actual work experience outside the home, let alone any managerial experience. Okay then. Doesn't really impact us much, we're just their third-party IT firm. Except Kayla turned out to be far less than competent. She didn't know their line of business at all, nor their lab software. They brought in a trainer from their software vendor to work with her. She'd always ask us questions too, and we'd try to help but we weren't their software people, just IT. We'd regularly submit tickets to the software vendor on her behalf. She'd routinely do tasks incorrectly that Deb, the number 2 person, had to always correct. Deb was also great, older and close to retirement herself. I'm surprised she didn't just up and leave as she should have been made manager when Chris left. At any rate, back to our story. They're located in a rather rural area and had lousy power to boot, so we had set up each workstation with its own small UPS. They don't last long as you know, and one day Kayla's died. She called us and we shipped her a replacement, and I told her to use a power strip until the new one arrives. Easy enough. I also made clear that, when the new UPS arrives, on the bottom is a door where you slide it open and connect the battery leads. This is just a small PC UPS. I reiterated she has to do this before swapping it out, else it won't work. Basically, the UPS won't work unless the battery is connected, logically. The UPS arrives in a day or so and she emails and says it isn't working. I call her and ask, did you take the battery out underneath and plug it in? She assures me she had. I told her just to put the power strip back in and next time we have a service truck nearby we'll take a look. Fast forward a few weeks and I happen to be in the area, so I stopped by. I checked the UPS, sure enough, the battery was never connected. Kayla was snippy-like and said, here's the new battery backup that doesn't work. I opened it up, connected the battery, and put it in place where it of course works fine. Kayla stammers and says she did that, but a battery does not disconnect itself. I just silently do my work and ignore her, before chatting it up with Deb a little bit before leaving. About a year later she left, I never heard if it was voluntary or not, and their GM wouldn't disclose, and shortly after that the pandemic hit, where they eventually decided to sell. I happened to check the new company's website and Deb is still there, running that location as a division of the company as manager. I guess she wasn't close to retirement after all.